Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games ever made. And when I finally beat it, I wasn't ready to leave Hyrule. So, I made the worst possible decision. Oh no. There are 900 Korok Seeds in Breath of the Wild. 900. Which is already a number that sounds fake. And for some reason, after beating one of the most magical open world games ever made, my brain looked at this nightmare of an image and went, yeah, that seems relaxing. I was sitting on my couch during deep COVID. I was in high school, I was stuck inside, and Hyrule had basically become my escape. That was the magic of Breath of the Wild to me. It felt like a real place. I could pick any direction and just run. No schedule, no walls, no real plan. Just a mountain in the distance, and that feeling if I could see it, I could probably get there. So, after I beat Ganon, I really didn't know what to do with myself. I did a couple side quests, I finished most of the shrines, walked around, beat up a couple bokoblins, however you say it, I don't know. And I tried to squeeze a little bit more out of the game. But eventually, I opened up Google, typed Korok Seed map, Breath of the Wild, clicked on the first Reddit image I saw, and decided I would start in the top right corner and work my way down. Which is an insane sentence to say about an open world game that's supposed to be an adventure. Teleport, pick up a rock. Yahaha! 1 down. Teleport, another rock. Yahaha! 2 down. Teleport, 1 more rock. Yahaha! 3 down. At first, it felt reasonable. Like, okay, I'll just knock out a few. Spend a little more time in one of my favorite games. Maybe this will be chill. But then, about 5 Koroks in, maybe 10 minutes later, I already knew. This was gonna suck. And that's the part that makes no sense, because I could have stopped. I wasn't halfway done, I wasn't even close. I was looking at the start of an awful task, thinking I hate this, but then I decided to do it anyway, because I had already started. And that sentence is terrifying. I already started. That is the kind of thought that can turn a game you love into a job you accidentally clock into. At first, I thought I was giving myself more Breath of the Wild. That was the whole point. I loved Hyrule. I didn't want to let it go. But the longer I did this, the less it felt like I was actually in Hyrule. I wasn't talking to NPCs anymore, I wasn't wandering into ruins, I wasn't chasing Lionels, I wasn't climbing random mountains just because they looked interesting, I wasn't getting distracted by some enemy camp in the distance, I wasn't really looking around at the world anymore. I was looking at the map that told me where the next Korok Seed was. That's the weirdest thing about it. I wanted to stay in the world, so I pulled out a map, and the map made me stop looking at it. And slowly, the game changed. Not because Nintendo patched it, not because Breath of the Wild suddenly got worse, but because I changed the question I was asking. At the beginning, the question was, what's over there? But eventually, the question became, what's left? And those are completely different games. The Breath of the Wild that I fell in love with was about curiosity. The Breath of the Wild that I created was about errands. Loading screen, rock, loading screen, rock, loading screen, rock, over and over and over again. At some point, half the game became loading screens from fast traveling, which is an insane way to play a game famous for making the travel itself the fun part. Somewhere along the way, I stopped exploring and I started navigating. And the worst part is, I knew it. I knew it wasn't fun. I knew it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't even really interesting. But I kept going anyway, because I wanted to finish it. I needed to finish it. I wanted the bragging rights. I told my brother I was doing it and he basically said good luck. Because every time I got one more seed, quitting felt a little bit dumber than continuing. And because deep down, I still thought finishing more of the game would make me feel closer to it. Eventually, somewhere in the bottom left corner of the map, I found the last one. I teleported to Hestu immediately, watched his little dance, got the reward, and then I kinda just stared at the screen. Because after all that, after 900 Korok Seeds, your reward is basically a golden piece of poop. And honestly, that might be the funniest possible reward. It feels like the game itself is looking at you directly and asking, why did you do this? And I didn't feel proud. Not really. I felt relieved. Not relieved that I had done it, but relieved that I didn't have to keep doing it. Which is a crazy emotion to feel at the end of one of your favorite games. Because I started collecting Koroks because I didn't want Breath of the Wild to end. And by the end, I was just glad it was over. At first, I thought this was just a Korok problem. Like, yeah, obviously collecting 900 tiny forest children for a joke reward is going to be miserable. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I do this all the time. Not always this dramatically, not always with 900 collectibles, but the pattern's the same. I fall in love with a game, I don't want it to end, so I start trying to squeeze more out of it. And somewhere along the way, the game stops feeling like a place, and it starts becoming a list. I've done it in Pokemon, I've done it in Minecraft, I've done it in Stardew Valley, I've done it in Animal Crossing. And the weirdest part is, I usually start doing it for a good reason. I'm not trying to ruin the game, I'm trying to love it longer. Which is why my brain always goes back to Minecraft. Because when I was in 5th grade, my family had this Pocket Edition world together. And every night, everyone would come down with their iPads and Kindle Fires, and we'd all play. We barely found diamonds, and our houses were ugly. And we had no idea what we were doing. And that was the best part, because back then, Minecraft wasn't a machine that I was trying to optimize. It was just our world. And the weirdest part is, I don't actually think I hate optimization. I don't. I like getting better at games. I like understanding systems. I like building something that works. That's part of the fun. The problem is that sometimes the better I get at a game, the smaller the game starts to feel. Because when I first spawn into a Minecraft world, there is still this moment, this tiny little window, where I don't know what that world is going to be yet. I don't know where my house is going to be. I don't know where the caves are. I don't know what the landscape looks like yet. I really don't know where I'm going to end up. So I do the same thing every time. I get basic tools, pick a direction, and run. Not because it's optimal, but because I'm looking for a feeling. I'm looking for that place where I stop and go, yeah, this is home. And that part still works. That part is still magic. But eventually, a second version of me shows up. The version that knows too much. That version doesn't see a cave, it sees ore. It doesn't see a skeleton spawner, it sees an XP farm. It doesn't see a village, it sees slaves. I mean trading. It doesn't see a mountain, it sees a build location. And again, that's not automatically bad. That's literally what makes Minecraft Minecraft. The game gives you a world, and then slowly lets you turn that world into something that works. But there is a difference between understanding a world and reducing it. And I think the difference is where the magic starts leaking out. Diamonds are the easiest way to explain this. Because when I was younger, finding diamonds felt impossible. It felt like the game had chosen you. You would be in some random cave, probably lost, probably almost dead on half a heart, placing torches one at a time, and then you'd see that little blue block in the wall. And everything stopped. Like, wait, is that actually diamonds? One diamond used to feel massive. Now I can get an enchanted pickaxe, go mining, come back with like 60 diamonds, and it feels like nothing. Which is insane, because technically I did better, I got more. I was more efficient, the number was bigger, but the feeling was smaller. And that's what scares me about optimization. Sometimes it gives you more of the reward, but less of the feeling. Because the first diamond was never just about the diamond. It was about not knowing when it would happen. It was about being lost. It was about the cave. It was about the little moment where the game surprised you. And once you know exactly how to get that feeling again, you really kind of can't. And then there's the XP farm, which might be the funniest example because I have spent so many hours standing in one place just hitting skeletons so a number goes up. Swing XP, and I'll do this for way too long. Not because it's fun, it's not, it's deeply not, I know it's not. But because I'm telling myself this is going to make the fun part better later. I'm grinding now so that I can build later. I'm getting levels now so that I can explore later. I'm doing the boring thing now so eventually I can get back to the good part. But sometimes that later never really comes. Because once the tools are enchanted, now I need mending. And once I have mending, now I need better villagers. And once I have better villagers, now I need emeralds. And now I need a better farm. And suddenly, I'm not exploring a world anymore. I'm maintaining a system. And the craziest part is, I am objectively better at Minecraft now. But 5th grade me, running around in Pocket Edition with my little brother, barely finding diamonds, building terrible houses, getting lost every night, that version of me might have been playing it better. Not more efficiently, but better. Because back then, the point wasn't to master the world, it was to be in it. Pokemon does the same thing to me, but in a completely different way. My first Pokemon game was Black 2. I picked Oshawott. Oshawott is still my favorite Pokemon. And there was something about your first Pokemon game that just gets permanently stuck in your brain. The music, the towns, the routes. That Pokemon team you built for absolutely no strategic reason other than you liked them. And that's the part I love. Your team feels like your team. Not because they're perfect, but because you chose them. But then the credits roll. You beat the champion, you beat the Elite Four. The adventure's technically over, and if you're like me, you're not ready to leave. So you look for the next thing. And in Pokemon, the next thing's obvious. You gotta catch them all. Complete the Pokédex. I've completed the Pokédex in a couple Pokemon games, including Sword and Violet, and the reason is almost the exact same as the reason for Breath of the Wild. I beat the game, but I didn't want to go. So I turned the world into a checklist. And to be fair, some of it was awesome. My dad, my brother, and I, we would each pick different starters, trade eggs, and then help each other fill out the decks. And that part still felt like an adventure. That part still felt like Pokemon. But then there's the other side of it. The part where a Pokemon stops being a creature and it starts being an empty slot. Find it, catch it, register it, box. Find it, catch it, box. And eventually, I'm not catching Pokemon because I care about them. I'm catching them because the number needs to go up. Which is such a strange thing for Pokemon specifically, because the whole fantasy is connection. This is a series about finding creatures, bonding with them, traveling with them, building a team. And then the completion asks you to treat most of them like paperwork. Not friends, not teammates, entries. Literally, Pokédex entries. You don't need to know them, you don't need to level them up, you just need to have them. And the second your Pokédex says you do, they'll stay in the box forever. And this isn't just an action game thing. Cozy games might actually be even more dangerous for optimization. Because they look innocent, they look soft, they look like they could never turn into work. And suddenly, you're running around Stardew Valley like you're late for a shift. I don't think I fully optimized Stardew. I'm not sitting here with like the most perfect humanly possible farm. But gifts, oh, I optimized gifts. The second those friendship points reset at the beginning of the week, I'm running around like Santa Claus with a spreadsheet in my head. This person likes this person hates that. Linus's birthday's coming up, don't miss the week. Talk to them, gift them, next person. And again, it starts because I like the characters. I want to know them better. I want the heart events. I want the relationships. But sometimes even friendship becomes a route, which is such a weird sentence, optimized friendship. But games make that possible. They turn relationships into meters. And once something has a meter, part of my brain wants to fill it. I'm just that type of guy. Animal Crossing gets me too, especially New Leaf. That was probably the Animal Crossing I played the most. And that game is supposed to be about a relaxing little town. Talking to animals, decorating your house, catching bugs, living a tiny second life. But even there, I found the numbers. Sell the fruit, get the bells, maximize the money, do the routine. Because once I know the fruit can become bells, the fruit stops looking like fruit. It starts looking like a bigger house. And that's funny, but it's also kind of the whole problem. The game didn't force me to do that. I did that. The game gave me the town. I found a job. This is why I keep thinking about the first 10 hours of a great game. Because almost every great game that I know has that window. That honeymoon phase, before I fully understand it, before I fully know what matters, before I know what I should be doing, before I know the best strategy, before I know what to ignore. And those first 10 hours are so special, because the game is still bigger than me. Dave the Diver did this to me immediately. Those first few dives where you don't know what's down there yet, every fish feels new, and where the ocean still feels a little bit dangerous, that's the feeling. You dive because you want to see what's deeper, not because you've already calculated the most efficient sushi menu. Not yet, at least. Mario Odyssey has it too. That was the first game I ever had on my Switch. I adore that game. Because in that game, finding moons didn't really feel like a checklist to me. It felt like the world constantly saying, look closer, there's something here. Behind that wall, on top of that building, inside that weird little corner. And the best part is, I didn't need a map for it. I just explored. I found things, and every moon felt like it was rewarding curiosity, not obedience. That's the difference. A checklist says, go here. Curiosity says, what if? And great games are really good at making what if feel irresistible. So maybe the problem isn't that I optimize games. Maybe the problem is that I start using optimization to chase a feeling that optimization can't really give me. I want a game to feel new again, so I complete more of it. I want the game to feel alive again, so I turn it into a route. I want the adventure to keep going, so I start measuring it. But that feeling I'm chasing was never in the number. It was in the not knowing. The first diamond, that first dive, that first moon. The first time you see a mountain and wonder if you can climb it. The first Pokemon you pick just because you like it. The first stupid house you build with your family, before anyone even knows what optimal means. And once I realized that, the question changed. Because this isn't really about Koroks. It's not really about Minecraft or Pokemon. It's about why my brain keeps doing this. Why do I keep turning games into work, even when I know it'll make them less fun? And why does I already started feel so powerful? Why does checking something off feel so good, even when the thing itself feels terrible? And why, when a game gives me freedom, do I keep looking for a list? Because I don't think this is just a gaming problem. I think games are really good at exposing something that we do everywhere. Because games are basically like little motivation machines. They're built out of goals. Bars, numbers, rewards, sounds, check marks. Tiny little movements where the game looks at you and says, good job. You did the thing. And that feels good. Of course it does. That's not a weakness. That's not me being dumb. That's literally how games work. That's how game design is. They give your brain a problem, and then they give your brain proof that the problem got solved. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that games don't just reward us for playing. They reward us for being the kind of person who can't stop playing. Not in some evil villain mobile games way. Not like every game is secretly trying to destroy your life, but some games are very, very good at making the one more thing feel reasonable. One more shrine, one more power moon, one more Pokemon, one more upgrade, one more day, and one more is dangerous because it never feels like a big decision. It feels tiny, it feels harmless. It feels like you're still in control. But then in 2 seconds, it's 2 a.m. and you've spent way too long giving people gifts in Stardew Valley. And that's why I keep coming back to this sentence. I already started. Because that sentence does so much work. It sounds logical. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like discipline. But a lot of the time, it's just sunk cost wearing a fake mustache. Sunk cost is basically the idea that once you already put the time, effort, or money into something, your brain starts treating quitting like losing. 5 Koroks in, quitting would have been easy. But 100 Koroks in, now quitting feels embarrassing. That's basically the trap. The more miserable the grind becomes, the more valuable finishing it starts to feel. Not because the reward got better, but because the cost got bigger. And modern games make this even easier, because they are really good at showing us what's missing. And that's why checklists are so powerful. My to-do list personally, I itemize every little thing because I love that feeling of the dopamine rush of checking something off. There is a reason achievement sounds exist. There is a reason the quest complete screen feels so good. There was a thing and you did the thing. Now the thing is done. And it feels good. That's why completion can feel so much safer than curiosity. You know when it's done. And that feeling can feel really comforting, especially when the rest of life doesn't feel like that at all. That's part of why Breath of the Wild hit me so hard during COVID. Real life felt stuck, but Hyrule moved. And I think that might be the real trade. Control versus wonder. Because wonder requires not knowing. Wonder requires uncertainty. That is why the first 10 hours of a game feel so magical. The game is still winning. It's still bigger than your knowledge of it. You don't know which items matter yet. You don't know which places are important. So you care about everything. And that might be the saddest part of getting better at video games. You don't just learn what to do, you learn what to ignore. And the game might not be actually getting smaller, but your attention does. This is what happened with the Korok map. Hyrule really didn't become any less beautiful, I just became less available to notice it. Because I don't think games lose all their magic at once. I think we stop giving them the kind of attention that magic needs. Games are always asking for attention. Not just time, attention. Attention's the real resource. Because you can spend 100 hours in a game and barely be present for half of it. And I'm not saying that's bad. Sometimes you just want to turn your brain off and run around your Minecraft world and jump on all the boxes while you're talking to your friend. That's real. But the danger is when I start expecting a game to feel real and magical, while giving it none of the attention that made it magical in the first place. I want that feeling of discovery while following directions. I want the feeling of adventure while staring at a map. I want the feeling of being lost without actually risking getting lost. And that just doesn't work. This is where guides get complicated, because guides are amazing. I use them all the time. I use building tutorials in Minecraft, I look up things when I'm stuck. Sometimes a guide makes a game better. Sometimes it saves you from wasting 3 hours on something annoying. Sometimes it lets you experience something you would have missed completely if you hadn't read it. But guides do change the relationship you have with the game. Because the second I open up that IGN guide, I'm not just playing the game anymore. I'm playing someone else's knowledge of the game. Someone else already lost for me. They already tested the bad strategy. They already found the secret. They already made the route. But now I get the reward without the uncertainty and the curiosity. Which sounds great until you realize the uncertainty was the part that made it fun. So the loop starts to look like this. I love a game. I don't want it to end. So I look for more. That gives me more to do. So I keep playing. But the way I'm playing makes the game feel less alive. So the feeling starts fading. And that feeling is fading? So I assume I need more. More goals, more checklists, more progress, more game. But I don't want to put this all on the player, because games are not passive in this. A lot of games are designed to make completion feel irresistible. They put icons everywhere, they show you percentages, they give you little maps and tasks, they give you achievements, they give you collectibles, but then they act surprised when all the players start treating the game like a checklist. If you build a world like a to-do list, some players are going to play it like one, and I'm absolutely one of those people. If there's a number, I'm going to notice it and I'm going to try and max it out. If there's one missing entry, oh, it bothers me. Not because I'm uniquely broken, but because the game just taught me to care that way. There's this idea in game design that players will always optimize the fun out of everything. And the annoying thing is, yeah, I will. Because if a game gives me a boring strategy, and it works better than a fun strategy, there's a decent chance that I'm picking the boring one, and then blaming the game for being boring. Which is ridiculous, but also kind of fair. Because if the best way to play your game is the least fun way, I think you've kind of failed as a designer. And a lot of players, especially like me, are going to choose the effective way, even if we hate it. That's what makes this whole thing so messy. I'm doing it to myself, but the game is also handing me the tools, and the internet is handing me the map, and my brain is handing me the excuse. And all three things are saying the same thing. Just finish one more thing. So by this point, the question really isn't, why did I collect 900 Koroks? That answer is easy, because I'm insane. The real question is, why did it feel so reasonable? Why am I standing at an XP farm and feeling productive? Why did filling out a Pokédex feel like staying in the world? Why did giving Stardew gifts on a schedule feel like friendship? Why did a map full of icons feel more like adventure when it was slowly replacing adventure? And I think the answer is that completion gives us something that curiosity never promises. Control. Sometimes making the system work is the fun part. A clean Minecraft storage room? Mwah! Beautiful. Chef's kiss. A farm with sprinklers finally covering every crop? Beautiful. A restaurant rush in Dave the Diver where every plate goes out perfectly? Beautiful. A route in Mario Odyssey where you chain together movement and suddenly you feel like you're understanding the level? That's beautiful too. There is a real satisfaction turning chaos into rhythm, and games are one of the best places to feel that. So the problem isn't really optimization itself. The problem is where optimization stops creating play and starts replacing it. Because even if I cannot make the game new again, I can still decide what kind of attention I give it. I can decide when to look something up, and when to let myself be lost. I can decide when a checklist is helping me and when it's replacing the game. I can decide when I'm playing because I want to, and when I'm playing because the number looks wrong. And most importantly, I can notice when the game stops feeling like a place and starts feeling like homework. So after all of that, I think the answer sounds almost too simple. Look up. That's why I really love that image of the first cutscene in Breath of the Wild, where Link is just standing out on that cliff looking out at the world. Because that's what I aspire to be. Not literally every second, but I want to stand in front of this giant world, the world that I love, the world that I want more time in, and look out. Because the fastest way to ruin a great game isn't always to play it badly. Sometimes it's to play it too correctly. To know exactly where to go, exactly what to do, exactly what matters, exactly what's left, until the whole world becomes something you're trying to finish, instead of somewhere you're allowed to be. So every once in a while, look up, because the thing you're trying so hard to complete might be standing right in front of you. Thank you.